Most people don't fail because they lack talent, opportunity, or intelligence. They fail quietly, slowly, and politely because they think too small about what is possible for them. I learned this lesson many years ago, not from a book, not from a seminar, but from watching ordinary people live very predictable lives and call it fate. And I noticed something interesting. Life didn't push them down. Life didn't corner them. They simply built a small mental room and decided to live inside it forever. Let me tell you a story. I once knew a man who worked the same job for over 20 years. Good man, honest man, showed up on time, worked hard, never complained out loud. One day I asked him, "Have you ever thought about doing more?" He smiled politely and said, "Oh no, this is fine, I don't need much." That answer sounded humble, but it was dangerous. Because it wasn't humility speaking, it was limitation wearing a friendly face. He had quietly decided that growth was unnecessary, that ambition was risky, and that comfort was safer than possibility. Thinking small doesn't announce itself as a problem. It whispers. It says things like, "This is enough," or "I'm not like those people," or "I'll try someday." And someday becomes a very crowded place where dreams go to wait forever. Thinking small convinces you to negotiate with your potential instead of demanding from it, and once you start negotiating with your future, the future always loses. You see, life tends to expand or shrink in direct proportion to the demands you place on yourself. If you ask little, life gives little. If you expect average, average becomes your permanent address. Thinking small keeps you stuck not because the world is unfair, but because the mind has accepted a low ceiling. And once the ceiling feels normal, you stop looking up. I remember another moment that changed my perspective. I met someone who grew up with nothing special by most standards. No advantages, no connections, no safety net. But the way he spoke was different. He talked about where he was going, not where he had been. He talked about what he was building, not what he was escaping. And when asked if he was afraid of failing, he said something I never forgot. He said something I never forgot. He said, "I'm more afraid of living a small life than making a big mistake." That sentence alone explained why one man stayed in the same place for 20 years and another rewrote his story. Thinking small keeps you stuck because it trains you to manage life instead of master it. It teaches you survival instead of progress. It encourages you to stay busy instead of becoming valuable. And the tragedy is not that people suffer. The tragedy is that they settle. They settle for familiar pain instead of unfamiliar growth. They settle for predictable days instead of purposeful years. Here's the hard truth. You cannot outperform your self-image. If you see yourself as limited, cautious, and ordinary, your actions will always follow that script. You will avoid challenges, delay decisions, and justify inaction. Not because you are lazy, but because your thinking has already decided the outcome. Thinking small doesn't stop you from starting. It stops you from committing. It allows you to try without fully trying, to dream without fully believing, to work without fully investing. Most people don't realize that thinking small is a habit, and like all habits, it compounds. Small thinking today leads to small choices tomorrow, which lead to small results next year, which eventually lead to big regret. And regret is one of the heaviest prices anyone can pay because it always arrives with the receipt of time wasted. Let me ask you something worth considering. What goals have you quietly reduced so they feel safer? What dreams have you downsized so they won't challenge your comfort? What ambitions have you hidden behind responsibility, realism, or logic? Those are not excuses. Those are disguises. Fear wears to sound intelligent. Thinking big doesn't mean being reckless. It means being intentional. It means deciding that your future deserves more effort than your excuses. It means understanding that growth is uncomfortable by design. If it were comfortable, everyone would do it. The reason thinking big feels risky is because it forces you to confront who you are not yet, and that can be unsettling. But staying small has a cost too, and it charges interest every year. I've noticed that people who think small often confuse gratitude with stagnation. They say, "I should be grateful for what I have," and they're right. Gratitude is essential. But gratitude does not require you to stop growing. Appreciation and ambition are not enemies. You can be thankful for today while demanding more from tomorrow. The danger comes when gratitude becomes an excuse to stop reaching. Thinking small also affects how you see time. You start living week to week, paycheck to paycheck, mood to mood. Big thinkers live decade to decade. They understand that temporary discomfort is a fair trade for long-term freedom. Small thinkers avoid discomfort at all costs and end up paying for it forever. There was a season in my life when I almost accepted less than I was capable of. I told myself I was being realistic, but deep down I knew I was being cautious because I was afraid of failing publicly. And then it hit me. Failing publicly is temporary. Living small is permanent. That realization changed the way I made decisions. I stopped asking, "What's safe?" and started asking, "What's safe for growth?" Thinking small keeps you stuck because it keeps your standards low. And life will always meet you at the level of your standards, never your wishes. Wishes are free. Standards are expensive. They require discipline, consistency, and the courage to say no to distractions that look good but lead nowhere. You don't need a new environment to think bigger. You need a new expectation. Some people move cities but take the same thinking with them and wonder why nothing changes. Wherever you go, there you are. Change doesn't begin with geography. It begins with philosophy. If you want to escape being stuck, you must challenge the ideas that keep you comfortable. You must question the beliefs you inherited, the limits you accepted, and the stories you repeat. Most limitations were never tested. They were just believed long enough to feel true. Let me tell you something powerful. The size of your problems often reflects the size of your goals. People with small goals complain about small inconveniences. People with big goals don't have time to complain. They're too busy building. Thinking big doesn't remove obstacles. It makes them irrelevant. In the end, life does not punish you for dreaming too big. It punishes you for thinking too small and expecting fulfillment. You were not designed to merely get by. You were designed to become. And becoming requires expansion, effort, and belief that stretches beyond what is comfortable. So if you feel stuck, don't ask what's wrong with the world. Ask what assumptions you've been living under. Don't ask for motivation. Ask for vision. Motivation fades. Vision pulls. Vision gives meaning to discipline and purpose to struggle. Here's the moral of the story. You don't rise to the level of your hopes. You fall or rise to the level of your thinking. Thinking small keeps you stuck because it convinces you that where you are is where you belong. The moment you decide to think bigger, demand more, and expect growth, life begins to respond differently. Not because life changed, but because you did. And once you change the way you think, you don't just move forward. You become someone who cannot go back.